Tony Kent, and this is another episode of Tony Kent Writes and Cross-Examines. And as I keep saying, and as I'm sure today's guest will be very happy to hear, it's the worst cross-examination anybody would ever see. It's worse than I even managed to pull off when I'm in court. So there are no tough questions at all. Today, we are very lucky to have Luca Veste with us. Luca is the best-selling author, as you can see at the bottom of the page, of The Six, of The Bone Keeper, and his new thriller coming out in, I believe, June or July. He'll tell us the proper date, is The Game. So, Luca, how are you?
I'm not doing too bad. It's Luca Veste, by the way.
I thought it was Luca.
We can talk about
I corrected myself that it was Luca Veste after last time we spoke.
Honestly,
it's not
the first person to do it. You won't be the last. It's dead easy. It's just that there's an E on the end of it. Yeah. That's all you got to remember.
Well, I thought last time I'd said Luca Veste and you corrected me to Luca Veste.
You did it last time.
Okay, right. Well, sorry, that won't happen again.
It's all right. I don't mind. I'm doing all right. I've been telling everyone lately is that I'm really missing competition. I'm missing sport on telly. Yeah. I didn't realize how much I was missing it until recently, but that's been the biggest gap in my life more than anything, because everything else is kind of how I would normally be at this point in the year anyway.
Yeah.
Is I would, if I'm writing, I'm staying inside quite a lot. But yeah, it's just the outside world is very different.
Yeah. It's very interesting, isn't it? Because I guess most people who might watch this that aren't writers won't necessarily appreciate, until you just said what you did, quite how locked down the writer's life can be anyway once they're actually at work.
I mean, that's the thing, is that I would be, all it is there's more people in the house now, because the kids are here and my wife's here, and that wouldn't normally be the case. So I mean, that's different. But when you're in the middle of, because I'm in the middle of writing a book that comes out next year, I don't tend to leave the house all that much anyway. So I mean, I can go days and days without leaving the house. Quite easily without even noticing. So it's not been much difference. It's just that you're very aware of it now, is that you can't go and do these things. You can't go and just live your life.
Prohibition as opposed to whether you'd be doing it anyway.
Exactly. But I mean, it's not, I talk to my family a lot more than I do now, my outside family rather. We do a lot of stuff, quizzes and stuff like that that we wouldn't have normally done. So that's been nice. And thankfully, in touch wood, we've not been personally affected by what's going on. Which I'm forever grateful for at the moment, because I don't want to be at all. I don't because it's horrible, and my heart goes out to all of those who are being affected by it.
Yeah. I mean, it is absolutely, when you consider just how many people are being hit by this. I mean, even from an American perspective, I mean, it's more than the Vietnam War now. Yeah. And you just think, when I used to read the stories about how many people were coming back in body bags from there, and fair enough that they're the young rather than the old, but still, a relative is a relative, a loved one is a loved one. It's absolutely inconceivable.
I don't like to think about it too much, because I think I'm trying to be more positive lately.
Yeah.
And like to think that this isn't the new normal. This is just a blip.
Yeah,
it's a blip. And we will be, at some point, there's an end date to this. At some point, this will come to an end, and we will be back to what is normal. And
we will be in a bar at a festival somewhere.
Exactly. That's all I'm interested in. I didn't realize how much of my social life kind of revolved around festivals and events and things like that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize until now. It's just like, oh my God, I'm not going to see these people. I'm not going to see this person for this long, this person for this long, with all the festivals stopping for this year. And this is kind of how it will be for a while. Is like, I'm going to have to invest in a webcam, and I didn't have to think. I'd never thought I'd have to do that.
Yeah. Well, I just had an interview just before you with Mason Cross, or Alex Knight, as he's calling himself slightly at the moment. And it dawned on us halfway through the interview, it's the first time we've ever, and we've spent a lot of time together, it's the first time we've ever had a long conversation sober. It just does tell you how often how big the festivals are in terms of social life.
Well, doing the podcast, we've been doing, because we've been doing that for like 3 years now, is that there are writers on there who the only time we've ever spoken sober is on the podcast.
Yeah.
And we will talk about something on the podcast that one of us won't remember.
So that's the Two Crime Writers and a Microphone podcast with Steve Cameron.
Yeah. We just hit 100 episodes of that. We've been doing it since November 2016. That was an idea that Steve came up with one night, and I don't know. We'd never really spent a lot of time in each other's company before that. We'd seen each other at a couple of festivals, but we got on instantly. We kind of instantly got each other. We knew exactly, and we made each other laugh. Very similar, and we made each other laugh instantly. And I told him a story, he told me a story, and that was it. But he came with this idea, and I think he just wanted to kind of replicate the conversations that would happen later at night at a bar, at a festival, and that's basically what we've been trying to do for 3.5 years. When we first started it, we thought 3 people would listen to it, and that would be it. But instead, it's kind of grown into this like kind of thing where it's like we have thousands of people listening, and it means that I edit all the stuff that's libelous out of it now and stuff like that a lot more. But
Steve is surprisingly libelous for a lawyer.
Yeah, he is, and he just leaves it to me to work out whether or not I should leave it in. But it's been an absolute joy to do, because we've talked to really interesting people and found out things about them that we would not probably have done if we were just getting drunk together. So we've had everyone on there as well. It's been brilliant, and I've not laughed as hard at anything as when it's just me and Steve in our respective, little rooms on our own, just crying, laughing. That's stupid.
It's a great show. I've been on there, as you know, and of course it's an absolutely fantastic show. And
we describe it as the best worst books podcast, because it's a great podcast. Not a lot about books in it.
No, nothing about books. We definitely spoke more about lampposts than we did books. The one I was on. But I mean, talking about how successful that is, it's just one of your ventures, isn't it? And your mission to take over every festival in the world. Because if you're not doing the podcast as the main event, you're playing the guitar with the fun-loving crime writers at the other main event. So, I mean, are we allowed to have crime festivals without Luca Veste?
No, I don't think so anymore. And that was literally, I thought, if they won't invite me for the book, so I'll just do everything else.
I'm not paying for tickets one way or the other.
Exactly. I just want free entry. But no, I think it's just it's a byproduct of the fact that, like, when I was younger, I was very much a show-offy type of kid. I was doing all kinds of sports, and if I wasn't doing that, I was in plays and musicals and stuff like that. So I've always been a very outgoing and performative person. So whenever you talk to other writers, you'd realize that there's kind of like there's an undercurrent of that, because every book is kind of like a performance. It's like you are giving a performance with the story. So when, like, someone asks you if you can play bass or drums, for example, and you don't play either, but you still say yes, it's because that's in where it's like, I want to do that. Sounds interesting. I want to be in a band. And I was in loads of bands. I was in loads of bands as a kid, but I was a guitarist. I was a singer, and but I thought bass is kind of like a guitar.
I can't tell the difference.
it just seemed to have too few strings. So I thought that'll be fine. And I learned how to play bass, and we all got together. But the Fun Loving Crime Writers, I don't know how. I'm worried about trying to examine it too hard, because it doesn't make any sense when you just say, like, 6 crime writers got together, having never played together before. 2 months before we played Edinburgh Book Festival, rehearsed for an hour, and then played that, and then 2 years later we're playing Glastonbury Festival.
I mean, it's just incredible, isn't it? It really is.
I mean, as a kid, when I was in all these bands and doing the pub circuits on my own and doing all that kind of thing, that was the dream, is to get to Glastonbury, get to a massive festival like that. When I got to, like, my mid-20s and realized that wasn't going to happen, that dream got parked. That was like, that's never going to be the case. And so when it came around, it's because of another career that I found, basically, because writing was something, again, that I never did when I was a kid. I was a massive reader, but I didn't write stories and stuff like that. But it was something that came later on, and it was like that. Because of that, I got to another dream. So it's like an endless succession of dreams being made. Like just
it's a charmed life.
Yeah, it is, and I don't want to examine it too hard because that's how the whole house of cards could fall.
But this reminds me, if the dream I had to park when I was at the end of my teens was fighting in Madison Square Gardens, and the thing is, if my writing career got me to do that now, I'd get my face smashed in. So I'm glad you're doing something that allows you to still perform.
I feel like that's a publicity tour that's gone really wrong. If that's how.
Right, we've got just under 5 minutes left, so I want to talk about your books quickly because that's kind of why we're here. I was saying to you off camera, and so I'll stick to the two that the most recent two. Your books, for me, certainly the ones that I've read, I know you started off with some more sort of police procedural based, but the Bone Keeper and then the Six. I read the Bone Keeper first. I read the Six about a year later, and they're like they are in a different genre. I mean, it's incredible that someone can write. The crime genre, as I said to you before, is incredibly wide, and really it's not one genre. It's a load of genres under one heading. The reality is, the two books that I've read of yours most recently, they're like a different genre. I mean, it's like a different person wrote both of them. And is that intentional?
I think it is in some ways. I think it's a subconscious thing though. I think it's just me trying not to become bored with something, and it's also to do with the story. The Bone Keeper was a story that I had in mind from when I began my writing career 9 years ago now, and it just never fit with the books that I was writing when I first started out. So when it came to writing book 5, and I knew I wasn't going to be using the police characters that had been in the first 4 books, it was like, okay, I can now write this story. But I knew straight away it was going to be very mythological and horror aspects to it and all that kind of thing. And that would
brilliant book, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Really good.
I knew it wasn't going to be like the first 4 whatsoever. But when the 6 happened, the story led that. It was the idea that it was it was an image I had in my head when I first started that, of 6 people standing around a body and wondering what they're going to do next, and not being your typical people to have got into that situation in the first place. And what I realized writing that book was it was the first book that I wrote with no police characters in. It was the first time I'd kind of had to, have a mystery kind of element to it, but without the wherewithal to kind of rely on the police just going and knocking on someone's door.
Yeah.
So what I realized though writing it was that I enjoyed that process so much that I wish I'd have started it earlier. And what I realized is that I enjoy writing about characters and creating characters much more than I do sometimes the unpacking a mystery or like working out what. I just love the character bit. And so I've got to kind of marry the two together now, and moving forward, that's very much more what I'm going to be doing.
Oh, fantastic. And the next one is The Game.
The Game, yes. This is a book that actually was written before the 6. It just never kind of clicked. It never kind of worked. So I parked it and wrote the 6 instead, which may have something to do with how the 6 kind of comes across. Is that I've gone way away from what I was doing beforehand.
Yeah.
But The Game is, as you can imagine, it's about a game. It's about an online game, which kind of has repercussions in the real life world. And some people are found dead in Liverpool, and we'll see how that happens and all that kind of thing.
And when's it out?
It's at the moment it's been moved to November this year.
November now.
So we'll see how that goes. I mean, I don't think anyone can kind of pretend to know when books are going to come out anymore.
No. We stuck with Power Play. We stuck with our original dates, and God knows, I don't think anyone's read it. It's just, but what can you do? As we said, it's the blip. It's a blip year.
It's the blip.
Listen, we're nearly at 15 minutes, and in order to get this on Instagram, we have to stop under 15 minutes. So, Luca, thank you very, very much for speaking to us, and also for making it very interesting. We got to books in the end.
You did. Thanks very much for having me on.
Look forward to seeing you soon.
And you, mate.
Cheers, bye.